Hi, welcome to another Teen Cuisine, part of our Summer Reading Club 2021. Don't forget that the summer reading is almost over, so go ahead and get on READsquared and log your minutes by July 31st, and you could be entered to win one of our grand prize drawings. So if you'll remember, this Teen Cuisine series is a chance for you to learn how to make some really delicious, hopefully nutritious recipes and gain some confidence in the kitchen. Before you begin, don't forget to wash your hands, which is an important step. You're going to go ahead and get your hands wet. Use some soap and scrub for 15 to 20 seconds. Make sure to get in between your fingers and underneath your fingernails. Rinse thoroughly and dry your hands. Today we're going to be making a gazpacho, which is a traditional cold soup from Spain. It's perfect for those hot summer days. Let's go ahead and go over some of the ingredients. What you're going to need for the gazpacho is a green pepper, some Roma tomatoes, an English cucumber, a red onion, a slice of bread, garlic cloves, and then some seasonings. We're going to use salt, cumin, and black pepper today. Then we'll also use some olive oil and some red wine vinegar. This recipe is really excellent because it's pretty easy, and we're going to have our blender do almost all of the hard work. We're not going to have to finely chop any of the vegetables, just do kind of a rough cut. Let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to start with our cucumber. If you're at home and you bought an English cucumber, you're going to actually just cut it in half and use half of it. Again, because we're using a blender, we don't really need to cut this a lot, which is super great. This is so fun and it's super easy. You do want to cut off the end of the cucumber. We don't need that in there. And then you could either make 4 slices in here. It really doesn't matter. I just hope you're having fun with the knife. You can just plop those right in there. And we'll see what happens later. Oops. If you think they're too big, you can cut them just a little bit more. All right, now I'm going to take my red onion. This is a good sized one. I only need half of a red onion. You probably also only need half of a red onion. If you like things spicier, you can give it a little bit of the whole onion. So some of you might also not have a blender at home, and that's okay. You might have a food processor and that will work just fine. And if you don't have either of those tools, that's okay. Consider this an excellent time to practice your cutting skills. And you can just finely cut all of these vegetables that we're using today. And it will be chunky, but it will be very delicious. So I've cut my red onion in half, and I'm gonna cut my half just in a few smaller pieces so it fits in my food processor. And then I can just dump it right in there, ready to go. Isn't this a beautiful color? Now I'm ready for my green bell pepper. And for this recipe, we do need to use the whole thing. I like to cut my bell pepper in half, and then I can see all the insides there that we're gonna go ahead and scoop out. We don't need any of these parts. If you're saying to yourself, well, I don't have a green bell pepper, but I have a yellow bell pepper, or I have a red bell pepper, you can use that too. It might change the taste just a little bit, but it's going to be delicious. I'm going to just, again, roughly chop this bell pepper and let my food processor or my blender do most of the work for me. So now, I think we're ready for our garlic. Garlic is one of those things that you can actually add as much as you want of. If you really like garlicky tasting things, go ahead and add more than the 2 garlic cloves that are in the recipe. If you really don't like garlic at all, you can omit that and that'll be just fine. When you're cooking in the kitchen, you're the boss. So I actually got a really huge garlic clove. I'm going to show you this. And I think this is just as equivalent to 2. So I'm only going to use this one today. But I'm still going to cut it into a couple pieces so I can put it in the blender. And then last, we're going to want our tomatoes. The tomatoes are going to give our gazpacho the nice red color, and it's going to give it a delicious, cool, refreshing taste. You don't need any of the inside part. It's called de-seeding the tomato. So you can use a spoon to scoop it out, or you can use a knife, whichever feels comfortable for you. There's also a little top on the tomato and we can cut that out. You have 2 pounds of tomatoes, so this part might take a while, and that's okay. Again, you don't need to cut it into really small pieces, but you do want to take the time to take out that inside part. And you'll put that in your blender. After you cut up your tomatoes, you're ready for the bread. So we're gonna take this bread and we're gonna cut off all the crusts, and then we're gonna soak it in the water. I'm just gonna chop these off just close to the edge, just because we don't want that part in the soup. It will just change the consistency of it. I'm gonna turn on my faucet and just get this bread kind of wet. If it's a little soggy, that's okay. You can just bring it out a little bit, and then it's just ready to put in here. And now I'm ready to add in some of my other ingredients. I'm gonna go ahead and put in 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, excuse me. So this is gonna give it a nice flavor and add more liquid to our soup so it blends up. After the olive oil comes the red wine vinegar. You'll need 2 tablespoons of this. Just 1 and 2. I love the smell of red wine vinegar. Now you're ready for the seasonings. We're gonna go ahead and put in 1 teaspoon of salt. And the seasonings is actually something that you can adjust later on after we blend it. So if you decide that you need a little bit more salt, you can add some more in a little bit. We're gonna use a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin. Cumin has a lovely aroma, if you want to take a minute to sniff that. And then we'll need pepper. So my pepper is just in a cracker, so I'm just gonna eyeball, just guess at what is about a 1/2 teaspoon. If you have pepper in a container, you can just get a 1/2 teaspoon at this point. I do like things a little spicier, so I add just a little bit more. And now I'm ready to blend. If you have any questions about your own blender or food processor at home, make sure you get your adult with you and they could answer any questions you might have. I have a different kind of food processor. It's called a Ninja. That was a little commercial plug for that. But the blender part is on the top. So you're gonna wanna puree or blend your soup for about a minute, and you're gonna want it to look soupy. If you want it to be really smooth, blend it a little bit longer. And if you like your soup a little bit chunkier, you can leave it chunky. All right, now that mine's blended, I can go ahead and open up the top and see how I like the taste. This is where if you take a taste and you want to add more salt, more pepper, maybe you love cumin, you can add some more of that. Maybe you decided that it's not garlicky enough, you can do that here at this time. Once your gazpacho is made, you can put it in an airtight container. You're going to want to put it in the fridge for about 3 or 4 hours. You want it to be really cold because that's going to be really refreshing to have. When you put it in the refrigerator, you can go ahead and eat it within the next 3 days. And if you have any left over, you can freeze it for the next 3 months. While our gazpacho is cooling, we're going to actually go ahead and make some croutons to go with it. So you might be thinking, croutons, we're gonna make croutons? This is difficult. But no, croutons are a lot easier than you might think. What you need is some bread, a loaf of white bread. If it's 1 or 2 days old, even better. You'll need some Parmesan, some pepper, salt, garlic powder, some Italian seasoning, some olive oil. Then you just need your hands and a good bowl, and you're ready to go. Before you begin cutting up your ingredients, though, you'll want to go ahead and preheat your oven to 375 degrees, and you'll want to prep your cookie sheet also. To prep your baking sheet, all you need is parchment paper. You'll just pull some out and lay it on a sheet. If you don't have any parchment paper, that's okay. You just might want to keep an eye on those croutons so that they don't get stuck to your baking sheet. Voila, baking sheet prepped. So let's go ahead and start cutting our bread. You're going to want to cube it roughly so they're the same size so that they bake evenly in the oven. You're shooting for about 3/4 inch cubes, but just do your best. It's going to taste great no matter what. So if you feel like you can stack your bread and do 2 slices at a time, or just do 1 slice at a time as well. So after you've cubed your bread, you're ready to add the other ingredients. We're going to start with our olive oil. You just need 1/4 cup. Make sure you're filling it all the way to the brim so you get all that liquid. And you'll just want to go ahead and drizzle it all over the bread. As evenly as you can. We'll be mixing this in just a moment. Next up is our Italian seasoning. That's going to give it a nice spice. And you're going to want 2 teaspoons of this. Oh, I love Italian seasoning. It smells awesome. Next up is garlic powder. Again, that's something that if you really aren't a garlic fan, you can go ahead and omit that. Leave it out of the recipe. I love garlic, so I will probably add just a teeny bit more than the 1 teaspoon it calls for. Now we're on to salt. Again, you're the boss in the kitchen. This recipe calls for 3/4 teaspoon of salt. If you like things a little saltier, you can try a little bit more. Last of all, you have your pepper. You need 1/2 teaspoon of that. Again, because I just have a pepper grinder, I'm just gonna crack some in there and see, oh, that looks great. It smells wonderful. And I'm ready to add my final ingredient. So the ingredient that you see online might not have this Parmesan cheese on it, but if you like cheese like I do, you're gonna wanna add it. You can add just a little bit, just sprinkle it around, just a little bit, or maybe a little bit more. And then, this is the fun part. Use your hands to go ahead and combine this so that you don't break up the breadcrumbs. You just wanna make sure everything is well combined and all the breadcrumbs are coated. Oh, this smells so good. All right, after you've finished combining that, you're ready to put these on your baking sheet and put them in the oven. All right, now that our croutons are prepped, they're ready to go on our prepped baking sheet. I'm going to just pour them out here gently, and then I can space them out a little bit. I want them to be in a nice thin layer so that they'll bake evenly and get crunchy, crispy along all their edges. So we're gonna put these in the oven for about 15 to 20 minutes. At about the halfway mark, you're gonna wanna stir them up a little bit so that one side of them doesn't get browner than the other. Let's go ahead and do that. Once your croutons are a pretty golden color, you can take them out of the oven. You can use them right away on your gazpacho, or you can save them in an airtight container for another week. Thank you so much for joining us today with this Teen Cuisine. I hope you had fun making some croutons and gazpacho, which is a really refreshing summer soup. If you're interested in more Summer Reading Club content, you can check us out online. Bye.